I walked into the media center at New Hampshire International Speedway on the morning of Friday, May 12th, the year 2000, completely unaware that the day would be the first domino to fall in an industry-wide nightmare that lasted for the next 18 months. Adam Petty sat talking to a small group of reporters. He was wearing a pair of sunglasses just like his famous grandfather, the King, Richard Petty. I couldn't resist. Man, you're inside. You're not a big enough big shot to be wearing sunglasses indoors just yet. He grinned a Petty grin again, just like Richard's and his dad Kyle's. He removed his eyewear and placed them atop his head. Yes, sir. I sat down at my computer and started to work, not paying much attention to the conversation that was going on around me. Then, I heard him say, "I've been trying to lose some weight." Adam was tall and rail thin, and he was telling folks he wanted to be even skinnier. I turned around, grinned, and looked him in the eyes. I could do that now that he wasn't wearing his sunglasses. Man, I hate skinny people. He laughed, I laughed, we all laughed, and that was that. I turned back to my computer. I have no recollection of Adam leaving the media center. 2 hours later, 19-year-old Adam Petty was dead. This is the first episode of Firestorm, 2000-2001, the years that forever changed NASCAR. We're going to remember the 5 drivers who died, the fear and the controversies that transformed Major League stock car racing and its approach to safety. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications because you do not want to miss a single moment. Chris Hussey first met Adam Petty in early 1986. Dating Tina Inman, the daughter of legendary Petty Enterprises crew chief Dale Inman, meant getting to hang out with the team and the Petty family at Rockingham. Adam was not quite 6 years old at the time, and let's just say that kid was hell on wheels.
The first time I remember being around Adam was at the Rockingham race in the spring race of Rockingham in 1986. My future wife and I had been dating 6 months, and I went to the race with them. I was there for the Busch race on Saturday with the Thomas Brothers team with Jimmy Hensley driving. In 86, it would have been Brett Bodine. And I was there on Saturday, rode back down with the family on Sunday morning, hung out there in the paddock, as they called it, or the wives parking or whatever. So Adam and Austin and that whole bunch of hoodlums was running around, and nobody could stand them. I mean, they were absolutely trouble. And, it's been said many, many times, you can't believe somebody just didn't beat Adam. And maybe somebody did at some point. But, boy, they were running around and they were in trouble and all that. And that was the first time I ever really remember being around Adam, and that would have been the spring of 86.
Archie Kennedy first got hooked up with the Petty family when he encountered his first grade teacher, Adam's mom, Patty, years later at the furniture store where he worked. She and her then husband and Adam's dad, Kyle, needed somebody to help look after the youngster's budding go-kart career. Kennedy would go on to become Adam's mentor and surrogate parent.
There have been many a times where I've gotten a phone call and said, "You need to get over here right now," because Kyle would be somewhere at a race. Adam would be disrupted at school, or some grades weren't where they needed to be. Yeah. And Patty said, "You need to get over here. You need to straighten him out. You need to threaten him with the go-kart, whatever you need to do." Many times I had to go there and pull him into Kyle's office and lay the law down. There's been a few times at the racetrack I've had to grab him up by the nape of the neck and tell him, "You do not talk to people like that."
Here's one story in particular when Adam looked to Kennedy as his friend, but also, hopefully, a getaway driver.
One story right now, we was getting ready to go to a go-kart race. And I pull up. Next thing you know, here comes Adam flying out the door. Patty close behind him. Papers in her hand, waving papers. I said, "What in the world?" He said, "We got to go now. We got to go. We got to go. Hurry up." I said, whoa, what's wrong? What's going on?" He said, "We got to go. We got to leave right now." Well, I rolled the window down in my truck. Here come Patty with the papers. Adam Kyle was on a Simpson deal. Okay. It was Adam's big deal. He wanted to look good. Pretty gloves, pretty suit, pretty shoes, pretty helmet. So he didn't have a problem going up to the Simpson trailer, getting whatever you want, signing off on it. That's all it was back then.
Whew.
Well, nobody knew about it. He would do this when I wasn't looking. And of course, his mom and dad was they were doing their thing. And next thing you know, Patty get the bill from Simpson. And that's what the papers was.
So how much was the bill?
I had no idea. I don't know if I knew or I don't remember either one. But for her to come out and be that angry, it had to be quite a bit. Because Adam liked the leather shoes.
Yeah.
He had to have everything pretty.
Yeah.
And I still got all that stuff at home. I have it in a shadow box. So I said, Patty, don't worry about it. I will handle this. Rolled up the window and we took off. We was headed to Liberty go-kart track. Over there on 49 or whatever it was. 220, 49. And I said, Adam, you can't be doing this. I said, you're going to get in trouble and we're not going to be able to race. If you don't go, I don't go.
Yeah.
So when you mess up, you mess me up too. So this has got to stop.
As the youngest member of the Petty racing dynasty grew older, he matured and eagerly took on the challenge of continuing his family's legacy. Adam showed flashes of the Petty brilliance as he rose through the racing ranks. A 1998 American Speed Association win at I-70 Speedway in Missouri, and an ARCA victory later that same season at Charlotte Motor Speedway with his grandfather Richard and Kyle in attendance. Success was harder to come by in the Busch Series, but Chris Hussey, who was named Adam's crew chief in mid-1999, was content to not pressure his young driver.
In hindsight, I always thought I was too conservative in my short time with Adam because I thought we had forever. And nothing's forever according to Mark Martin, but I thought we had forever. And we was just going to ease into this thing and let him get laps and not put him under duress at any time in the race car and let him learn at his own pace and let him race with the good guys and dabble with the cup thing a little bit. But I probably should have been more aggressive, but at the same time, Adam, he wasn't in a hurry. He had planned to do it. That's what he wanted to do. And he was good. He was really, really good. He would calm us down when we thought we needed to be running better. And he could tell we was getting excited. He would calm us down and tell us everything was going to be okay.
Despite the struggles he faced at times on the racetrack, Adam Petty never lost that youthful enthusiasm for his and his family's chosen profession.
Here's one of my favorite stories is I'd pull into the shop at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and Adam would be standing outside the shop with a short sleeve T-shirt on in the dead of winter with his hands in his pockets bouncing. He didn't even have a key to his own race shop, but he was there before we were, waiting for us to open the door. And then he would just sweep the floors, chew bubble gum and sweep the floors. And it's just whatever we could find him to do, but he would hang out with us all day.
The plan was for Adam to make the leap to Winston Cup in 2001 and run for Rookie of the Year honors with backing from Dodge, a manufacturer long associated with the family-owned team that was making its return to the sport. Kyle Petty was looking forward to the future with Adam and with Dodge.
For me, it was cool in two ways because I looked at it that I was going to have an opportunity to be back at Petty Enterprises, to drive a Dodge, and start being my deal, my career there. But at the same time, then I looked at it as we built those Dodges before we got to the racetrack with them, as we built those Dodges and did all our testing and everything, it was that's where Adam was going to have his opportunity to start. In the same place that my father kind of started, you know what I mean? Because obviously my father drove some Oldsmobiles and stuff before they landed in the Chrysler camp. But for me, it was like, okay, this is going to be cool. We're going to build Petty Enterprises back with Adam and with Dodge. So this will be the next wave of what Petty Enterprises can be.
Adam made his Winston Cup debut at Texas Motor Speedway on April the 2nd, the year 2000. Despite feeling a world of pressure, Hussey managed to lead an effort that was good enough to put the young Petty 33rd on the starting grid.
That's the closest I had ever been to being physically sick before qualifying. And Adam would never admit it, but he was the same way. Sprint had put a huge amount of obviously resource into it, a lot of promotion. That was a big area for them in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas. And, they sponsored Pole Day, actually. It was Sprint, Sprint Wireless or whatever Pole Day. And so it was big, and there was a lot of eyes on us for that race. And to make that race, I mean, you always want to race good, but to make that race was huge, because you got to remember his dad didn't make the race that day. There was a lot of good cars didn't make the race. That was a time when you were sending 5 to 10 cars home every week. Making the race was a big deal. And, we went there with 0 points, 0 nothing, 0 starts, had 1 test in that car. As far as a Cup car, we did go test it. And that was a huge deal to make that race.
Although Kyle Petty failed to qualify for the race, he of course stuck around to watch his son make his Winston Cup debut. When Elliott Sadler needed a relief driver in his Wood Brothers Racing Ford, a team for which Kyle had driven in the mid-1980s, Kyle gladly obliged. Father and son were going to be on the same racetrack at the same time after all. It didn't happen. The engine in Adam's car expired just before Kyle was able to make it onto the racetrack. Adam was credited with a 40th place finish in a race that saw Dale Earnhardt Jr., the son of another 7-time NASCAR champion, just like Adam's own grandfather, win the first Winston Cup race of his career. 3 days after Adam Petty's Winston Cup debut, his great-grandfather Lee died. It had been Lee who started the family on its racing journey in the late 1940s. He had been a 3-time NASCAR champion before turning the reins of the Petty empire over to Richard. As disappointing as Adam's engine failure might have been, as heartbreaking as Lee's loss was, it was okay. There would be other days in the sun. The week before heading to New Hampshire for the 12th race of the 2000 Busch Series season, Adam, Chris Hussey, and the rest of their team endured a grueling test at Charlotte Motor Speedway. When he arrived at the airport for the flight to New Hampshire, Adam was sporting a new haircut, courtesy of his sister, Montgomery Lee.
It had been a tough week. And when I say a tough week, we had tested the Cup car, actually 2 Cup cars at Charlotte, along with the Busch car, on Tuesday and Wednesday. And it was very, very hot that week. And, he was sitting there soaking wet at 140 pounds or something. And we'd pretty much burn him up on Tuesday and Wednesday, because we'd test the Busch car during the day and test the Cup car at night. And so we tested on Tuesday and Wednesday. And I remember I took him home on Wednesday night. We got back to his house at about midnight, his mom and dad's house at about midnight, and dropped him off and told him, I'd see him the next day at the airport. And so on Thursday, we flew up to Loudon and got to the track that morning. And sometime during all that, he'd gotten Montgomery Lee to cut his hair. And it was about as short as I'd ever seen it. But he was so proud that his sister had cut his hair.
That Friday morning, the team was having trouble getting up to speed.
We wasn't very good. I've had a lot of people come back and say, hey, man, y'all was fast too. No, we wasn't very good. And we didn't know why, but we wasn't very fast that day.
Still, there was a schedule to keep. As balky as Adam's car seemed to be, the team needed a qualifying run during the day's second practice session to see if it could find at least a little more speed. And then the world came to an end at about 12:45 p.m. Eastern when Adam's car impacted the third turn wall at an estimated 160 miles an hour.
If we go all the way up to the moment, we was making qualifying runs, and we went out and made a mock qualifying run. It's some of the things that I've only ever talked about to a few people, but I don't mind, because to this day, we still don't know what happened and why. We made a mock qualifying run. We come back in. We cooled the engine off by running cold water through the radiator, stuff like we normally do. Bolted another set of tires on. He started up, drove the car out of the garage, went down to the end of pit road, waited for me to find him a clear spot. And I said, okay, it's clear here. He drove out on the racetrack. He went down the back straightaway, went through 3 and 4, come around, took the green, went through 1 and 2, went down the back straightaway, and obviously the throttle hung.
Adam was pronounced dead at Concord Hospital, about 14 miles from the racetrack. Meanwhile, the search for answers was just beginning.
Carburetor didn't come off. The air cleaner didn't come off. Nothing around the engine was disassembled up around where the throttle would have hung. And you know, unlike some other accidents where it happens right out of the garage, obviously he was on and off the throttles, you know, a handful of times before the throttle actually hung and had the accident.
Incredibly, back at the racetrack that night, no one could recreate what had happened to Adam's race car.
You know, I went back to the racetrack later that night where they had the car secured in the storage building, and Mike Helton and John Darby and I, all three of us, we went over the car. We took the air cleaner off. The throttle wasn't hung there. We tried to make it hang. We did tricks on how we knew throttles would hang in the past, and we could not make the throttle hang on that car after the accident. And it was just, you know, it's still just that freak deal. And I firmly believe it's nothing that we did or any of the guys did. It was something freak happened, and we could never prove it. We, you know, like I said, John Darby was there. We looked all around the foot area of where heat shielding would be for the driver's feet to see if anything. There was nothing, and we just could not make it stick again. And of course, Carl Wagner was the engine builder. He was there. He helped us, you know, with the carburetor stuff, and we could make nothing work that could have caused that throttle to hang the way it did.
Like so many others in the next year and a half, Chris Hussey's life and career were forever changed that bright and sunny day in New Hampshire.
I tell people since it hasn't changed. It knocked a lot of the competitiveness out of me. It knocked a lot of the fight out of me. It made me realize that the world don't revolve around silly race cars, because up to that point in my life, the world revolved around silly race cars. It was all of a sudden it was about people, family, my kids, obviously. It just made me realize that there's a lot more important things in those race cars, because, you know, anybody that did it then, we worked 7 days a week, we worked our guts out, but it's what we chose to do and it's what we wanted to do. And after that, it just made me realize and put a lot of things into perspective that, you know, racing's nothing. And in fact, you know, and it just amazes me at the families with that type of loss, certainly the Petty family, the Allison family. We can go through tons and tons of families that have given the ultimate sacrifice to racing. And, you know, I admire them for keep going, because I'll be honest, I didn't want to keep going. And I did for a little while until we found my, you know, someone to replace me and do that. And I stayed in racing, but as far as just going to the racetrack week in, week out, and the competition, no, it was over for me. It was done for me. I still enjoyed going to test and learning and, you know, trying to make race cars faster. But as far as just the week in, week out competition, I was pretty much done.
Qualifying for the New Hampshire race was held that afternoon after Adam's accident. Driver Tim Fedewa had befriended the young Petty on the Kyle Petty charity motorcycle ride and had teased him just that morning about his bright and shining future. Fedewa put his car on the pole and then won the race on Sunday.
I qualified on the pole that day.
Yeah.
And my dad was there. And when I got out of the car, he grabbed me around the neck and told me the news, you know. That was as soon as I stepped on, my dad grabbed me and told me.
After qualifying?
Right after I got out of the car, yep, after we got the pole.
Wow. Yeah.
That was the first thing he said, you know. And so that was, you know, sombering to say the least. And you know, it was just horrible, right? Like we really didn't know what was going on at the time, of a lot of stuff happening and people getting hurt and killed, and, you know, and for Adam to, at that, what was he, 19, right? You know, it was just a all-out stunner, and no one wanted to, you know, you didn't even want to be at the racetrack. You wanted to just go home, but we all had to carry on, right?
For years, Kyle had seen the reaction fans had to him, his grandfather Lee, and Dad Richard. They asked for autographs during family meals at restaurants. They knocked on the door of the Petty home in Level Cross, North Carolina. They named their children after members of the Petty clan. More on that one later. What he didn't fully understand, much less appreciate, was the impact Adam's loss had on devoted Petty followers around the world. They didn't just consider Lee, Richard, Kyle, and Adam great drivers. The Pettys were part of their own families.
Sad but fascinating at the same time. When Adam's accident happened, I know right now I can go to the race shop and go to my dad's old shop, and I don't even know how many boxes of sympathy cards.
Yeah.
And probably fill half this room. No joke. I mean, we're in a big room.
I don't have any doubts.
Yeah, and no doubt. And when I started receiving those sympathy cards, and I'd open them and read them and open them and read them, I felt really bad for the people that wrote the sympathy card because they had lost somebody.
Yeah.
And that's the first time in my life that I ever realized the impact that my granddad and my dad and that that motorsports or racing and NASCAR had on people's families. You go into their living room every Sunday. They come and watch you, and you're not. It's funny. You're not Richard Petty anymore. You're just Richard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're just Richard's son. And then Adam was my son. So it was really funny to experience that because it was a paradigm shift. You saw the world from another side.
Victory Junction, a year-round medically supported facility providing free camping experiences to chronically and seriously ill children, was founded in Adam Petty's memory. Here's Kyle.
It was such a part of the healing process for me. When I see those kids come to camp and then leave with that smile on their face, and it's Adam's smile, I know Adam's still a part of me and still a part of my life and still here with me. And that's what camp means to me, is it changes and affects these kids in so many ways and empowers them and gives them confidence, but it also gives me a little bit of Adam. And that's something for me that is just priceless.
Less than a week after Adam's accident, my wife Jeannie had an appointment at a fertility clinic in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It was on that day that our twin sons were conceived. Jesse is the older of the two by 3 whole minutes, and his kid brother, as Jesse likes to remind him, is named Adam, in memory of the young man I knew once upon a time in NASCAR. In episode 2 of Firestorm 2000-2001, the years that forever changed NASCAR, we will remember Kenny Irwin Jr., who lost his life less than 2 months later at New Hampshire, the same track in the same turn. Hit the subscribe and notification button so you don't miss a single moment.
We were there, we put ourselves in a position to win the race, and we come up third, which is it's not bad for me.